progressive and entrepreneur.
We've raised the bar.
Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, you Realtor Growth listeners. Today I have Ari Galper. Did I say it right, Ari?
That's
your
right.
Last name?
Yeah.
I don't know, for some reason. Oh man, I always love it. I always try to make sure before we get on mic that I get the last name right. And I was saying, okay, no, we just talked that, but I almost feel like sometimes you have a attention span of a gopher, or not gopher. What is it? Goldfish. Right, where you get that word and you're like, okay, I just said it, I gotta remember. Well, anyways, Ari, he is a coach, a sales coach. He's the author of Unlock the Sales Game. Thank you, Ari, for being here today.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to it, Vinny.
All right, so I always love asking that, and I know you focus more on sales as a coach. And how would you separate your coaching style or you as a coach from other coaches out there?
Well, it's not about me. It's about what the message that I teach. I teach a unique approach called trust-based selling, which I've been doing for the last 20 years, just in this small little niche. And basically, it's to help people stop chasing ghosts, stop following up with people, stop the whole sales game that we all hate, and to build connections with people at a deep level where they feel comfortable telling you where they stand. So it's about really very contrarian ideas, going against the grain, and not the typical sales thinking and approach that probably people are used to in the industry.
So talk us more about basically what do you think is the usual sales technique out there then?
Well, typical sales conditioning believes that sales is a numbers game. The more contacts you make, the more sales you make. Well, we discovered it's not anymore about how many contacts you make. It's about how good you are in each conversation with someone, how good you are at trust building, not how many contacts you make. The other myth is this idea that the sales lost at the end of the process. We think the sales lost because it didn't close at the end. But we discovered in this economy now, the sales not lost anymore at the end of the process. It's now lost at the beginning of the process, at hello.
So are you saying that most people that teach sales are strictly off of numbers, but they're not trying to dive deeper into the person's true motivation? Is that kind of correct? Or
well, I'm not sure necessarily those who teach it, but those who sell every single day in their business are still using old behaviors and conditioning that's actually hurting them, not helping them. Let me give you an example.
Please.
For instance, I'll give you an example. So I developed my own what I call trust-based languaging. Words and phrases used to build trust with people in different ways. So here's an example. I'll ask all your listeners and viewers to never again use this phrase ever again after this call. And here it is. Never again use the phrase follow-up ever again in your career. Don't use it on email, and don't call somebody and say, hi, I'm calling to follow up. I mean, what's the only industry that uses that word follow-up that you know of?
The only industry?
Sales.
Yeah.
Sales, people who do selling say, hi, I'm calling to follow up. There's a few more classical. Remember the old ones? I'm calling to touch base, checking in. This is like 1980s kind of stuff. So here's what you say instead. You say, I'm giving you a call to see if you have any feedback on our previous conversation, any feedback on our last walkthrough, any feedback on the last meeting. See, feedback's going reverse, backwards, not forwards. See, we're so used to moving someone to a next step. What that does is suddenly, unconsciously, it puts pressure on them. They put their guard up and they hold back from you. And now you're playing a game with them. But if you learn how to cut through the noise with a different mindset, different approach, you can crack the code on potentially doubling your conversion rate of your opportunities.
So walk us through, I guess, a young Ari. Was a young Ari into sales, or who was a young Ari?
Well, I had an experience that happened to me 20 years ago when that kind of woke me up to all this. And I used to be a sales manager in software in a high-tech company, software company. We launched the first online website data collection tools. Now it's called Google Analytics. But fast-growing company back then. I was managing 18 salespeople at the time. And the big opportunities came across my desk, the leads that were good opportunities. And this one lead came through. I called them back. Great conversation, big, huge company. And they agreed to a conference call to see our product. So the day finally came, Friday, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm in the conference room with my CEO, closed door behind me, big long conference table. In the middle of the table is the old school speaker phones. Remember the old black ones with the speaker button on it? So I hit the button, dial tone, I dial the number. My guy picks it up. He's like, "Hey, Ari, how's it going?" I say, "Great." And he says to me, "Ari, let us tell you who's on the phone with us today." I said, "Great." Next thing I hear is, "My name is John. I'm CEO." I was like, "Oh, this is good." "My name is Mike. I'm head of global IT." Amazing. "My name is Julie. I'm head of marketing." Perfect. I mean, everybody on this call, Vinny, was a decision maker. Like they're all there. It's going to happen. It's going to happen today. So I introduced myself, explained what we do, walk them through a live demo to show them how it all works. And I started hearing this noise on the phone call, like, "Wow, this is great. This is amazing. This is fantastic." They start asking me all kinds of questions. How does it work? How do we install it? How does technology work? And of course, I had all the answers. I was professional. I was friendly, competent. There was so much chemistry on this phone call. It was like a love fest on the phone. You know what I'm talking about? Where it's like the perfect sales call. And the call goes by, an hour goes by, and they're happy. I'm happy. Call comes to a close. My contact says to me, "Ari, this is great. We love it. Look, give us a call a couple of weeks, follow up with us, and we'll move this thing forward." And I was like, "Oh, perfect." And so I reached for the phone, hit the off button. As I'm reaching for the off button, by complete accident, I hit the mute button instead of the off button. They were right next to each other. And a small click happened, and they thought I hung up the phone. And that split second, a voice inside of me says, "Ari, go to the dark side. Be a fly on the wall. Go where no one's ever gone before in the world of sales." And so I pulled my thumb back for a couple of seconds. They started talking amongst themselves, thinking I had left the call. And you probably imagine they would have said things like, "Hey, this is good. Let's move forward. Let's look into this." But let me tell you what they said to me, what I heard, verbatim, word for word. I heard this. I heard, "We're not going to go with him. Keep using him for more information, and make sure we shop someplace else cheaper." Knife in heart twist. I was in a state of shock. I could not believe it. After all that, I hit the off button. I looked at the wall and said to myself, "What did I do wrong?" And I realized at that moment that somewhere along the way, it has become socially acceptable not to tell the truth to people who sell. Right? It's okay to say things like, "Sounds good. Definitely interested. Give me a call," without any intention of buying at all. And that's when I realized that something has to change in the sales process in the game, because it is a game. And if I can shift the mindset of people who sell to a trust-based mindset by letting go of the end goal of the sale and building deep trust with people, not relationship building, that's more rapport building. I'm talking about deep trust where the other person feels themselves, "Man, this guy gets me," that I can crack the code. And that became the whole premise behind this whole system called Unlock the Sales Game.
Okay, well let's talk about, okay, so you get off the call, and what actually happens next? I mean, is it okay, you're deflated? I mean, do you take classes, or what do you actually do next?
I quit my job.
You quit your job just because you didn't get that one sale?
I quit
Okay.
my job because I realized why I lost the sale. I realized that I lost the sale because I didn't get to the truth with them to figure out if we're a fit or not. When I realized that, I said, "Man, how many of the people out there are suffering right now, being lied to, chasing ghosts, playing the numbers game, and don't even realize it? They're sleepwalking." So I decided to quit my job. I went on my own, and that became launching of my Unlock the Sales Game approach.
Well, let's. I mean, okay, so you are not able to get the sale, okay, and for, I think, a lot of people listening, if they weren't able to get the sale, they would probably take some, I guess accountability, saying, "All right, well, I didn't do this. I need to get better at this," right? For the way you took it, it sounds like, was that I was trained incorrectly and other people are trained incorrectly. So I'm going to quit this, and now I'm going to teach other people the right way. Even, I mean, weren't you going through a process trying to figure out the right way?
Well, I'm going to teach them how to get. Yeah, well, of course, my big idea was I'm going to teach other people how not to experience what I just experienced.
Okay.
How not to get lied to like that.
Okay, so what actually happened? I mean, so did you already have money saved up? Were you already planning on leaving the company? I mean, what? Because I think it sounds like there's something that we're missing. I mean, if you,
Well,
I
the
mean,
other thing that happened that was the good timing for me was that we got married and I had my first son, Toby. And after a couple of days after he was born, around that time, we were told that he had Down syndrome. And at first, we didn't know what it meant to our lives. And we realized we had a gift on our hands. If you know someone who has Down syndrome, you know they're beautiful people, right? They're loving, they're transparent, they have they're just pure souls, right? And he inspired me so much, the way he was and how he views the world. I decided to connect that mindset and view of the world of transparency and honesty with my problem I was about to solve. And that kicked off a realization. I realized, man, if I can help people be as pure as him in the process, be authentic like that, that will allow both parties to get together and tell each other the truth. We can end the sales game altogether. And I wrote a book about him called Lessons from Toby, which is how to stay centered in your business and personal life. And that became the foundational concepts behind what I ended up building out from there. I did some workshops, did some coaching, and I started coaching so many entrepreneurs and business people that I found all the holes in the sales process, and I was able to overlay it with this approach.
Okay, so let's get into, I guess, the nitty gritty of it. You had money saved, it sounds like, because you probably didn't go blindly into starting a new career, writing the book. So you had some money saved. You saw that there was an opportunity out there, and so you quit your job that day, it sounds like. And
that week,
you quit your job, and then from the next thing you do is start cold calling, reaching out to friends, networking, talking to a coach. What actually happens next?
None of that.
Okay.
What I did instead is I put an ad in the classified section of my local paper and offered a free workshop on what's called trust-based selling now. And I rented a small room in the bottom of a shopping mall. And I just hoped somebody would respond. And a few people responded, and about 3 people showed up into a room of like 30 chairs.
So that was the week after you quit, you had your first workshop?
No, I ran the ad after I left the job. Wrote the ad, learned about direct marketing, put the ad in a local paper, in a business paper, and a few weeks later, I got people calling saying, "Can I come to the workshop?" It was a free workshop.
So you said you did learn some direct marketing stuff.
Yeah. I've been studying direct marketing as well on the side, reading books about it.
Okay, so you're studying. You quit the job that week. Then you put the ad in the paper. It's kind of a quick action step, and then about a month or so afterwards, or 2 months after, you had your first workshop.
Correct.
Okay. Was there any kind of, because from this point before, you were getting a steady paycheck, right? Or was it commission based at the company?
Both, I think, back then.
Okay, so you were getting some kind of paycheck. You had a new child out there. That had to be, was that any kind of like being any kind of scared of kind of starting your own company with a new child, not getting a steady paycheck, anything like that?
I knew this was the right thing to do. I wasn't afraid.
So you had the faith, and then did you get reassurance at least once you actually saw people come through? Or
yeah, of course, I was relieved. The people actually
yeah, no, I mean, and I'm just trying to press so hard on it, because I mean, there's stuff that it's kind of gliding over it a little bit, and for people listening right here, right, they're dealing with this stuff, right? Some people are dealing with this stuff, or going, you know what, I have this passion, I have this hope of wanting to do something better. I found out this thing, right? And I've interviewed over 270 people, 300 people, whatever it might be. And most people have some sort of hiccup or some kind of doubt. It could be the smallest of doubt in their mind, right? Yet there's some time along the path that they go, you know what? That doubt is kind of pushed by the side, because I know I did the right thing, because I hit this goal. I sold this deal. I basically started this relationship, whatever it might be. So that's kind of why I'm trying to dive deep into your story. Does that make sense?
Well, for me, it was clarity on the problem I was solving.
Okay.
I knew that problem existed to every single person in the world who has to sell to make a living. So I knew the market was there. And I knew I defined the problem so clearly that problem is what I used to market the seminar. And that problem is what resonated with the clients, and that's what drove even to this day. I only market the problem. I don't market the solution and that's a big shift in thinking, because in marketing, we're taught to promote ourselves, promote our business, promote our solution. But unfortunately, we're living out in a commoditized world. So the customers don't see you as different because you're one of many. So I differentiated my business by being problem centric.
With I guess that mindset of marketing, was it something? Have you had this problem, or has this happened, or was it something like with that, or what kind of marketing pieces, I guess, were you putting out there to market the problem?
Well, one of my headlines, I think back then, was "Are you chasing ghosts?" ?
Okay. Right.
And then it described what a ghost was: someone who you had a great call with, great meeting, and they disappeared on you after they said, "I want to think about it." And now you're chasing people, playing the numbers game. Does it describe you? And turns out it describes like a million people all over the world every day right now. Is just speaking, who's in that hole right now, chasing people who aren't calling them back, and that problem still exists. That's why we're here today.
Now you're building the business, you're having success, kind of changing the way people look at sales. And before, you were managing a company or managing a group of people. What's the difference, or what did you find to be the difference from building this company compared to managing a part of a company?
Well, in that previous job, I was managing people in their jobs. In this role, I'm solving specific problems that I know I can solve better than anyone else in the world. So it's more of a focused gratification, because people come to me with only one problem. They can't convert the leads they already have coming through their funnel. They convert a couple of them. The rest are chasing.
Well, I not necessarily on the idea of it, actually the nitty gritty of it. I mean, you're talking about, you're going to have, I mean, the bigger you grow, you're going to have attorneys involved. You're going to have documentation. You're going to have admin, hiring, things like that. I mean, what were those things that you kind of had to work through or figure out, or did you outsource all those things as you were getting business that you didn't really have to focus on yourself?
Well, I did everything myself in the beginning, of course, like anyone does. But then first thing I did was I hired an assistant, a virtual assistant, who took all the admin work off of me. Because I knew right away with the 80-20 principle, I can't be doing work that does not have the highest return.
Yeah.
That was my big first breakthrough. Then I started to figure out a way to build credibility with people and differentiate myself based upon my messaging. That was important because that now drove inbound opportunity. Then I could end up getting an operations manager as I grew. And then I got a web person. So now I have a team of people who basically run the business behind me. And I'm the main spokesperson for it.
Because how long ago did you start the company?
20 years ago.
Virtual assistants, I mean, that seems you're almost cutting edge, right? 20 years ago, or?
Well, I didn't have I had a real assistant for a couple of years, and I think 15 years in, I went virtual. I've been virtual longer than people have been virtual. Yeah, a long time.
Yeah, I mean, the wild west right there of virtuals. I mean, what were some of the learning curves, I think, in I guess hiring a virtual back then for yourself?
Well, I had to be really clear and document in advance what were the tasks for them to do, and then a flow chart map out what the processes were for that, which took a lot of work in advance, but it saved me a lot of time. And giving that roadmap to that person to help get them on board as fast as possible.
Are you? I mean, and I know you were in managing previously, and now you're building this company, or you've built this company. Have you been very systematic your whole life of kind of, okay, this is how the process goes, this is a system, or is this something later in life that you've kind of worked through?
I learned that way of thinking from Perry Marshall, one of my mentors and friends, who's an engineer as well, and he helped me think more process oriented, and that really kicked me off to think like this.
Is there any kind of nuggets that you might be able to offer in how people can look more systematic in their daily life, daily routine, or building a business?
Well, yeah, like he teaches this concept of 3 levels of payment. You know, the 3 levels of work you can be doing. There's $100 hour of work, which is admin type of work. There's $1,000 work where it's you doing a function in the business, like making a sale, getting customer doing marketing. And then there's $10,000 work, which is planning where to take the business. And so I said to myself, I'm going to stop doing sub $100 work. So my time should be spent at the $10,000 work. And that in my mind divided up and getting me comfortable, cutting loose all the stuff I was carrying with me that was below my pay grade.
How often do you assess basically your routine, your weekly routine, your monthly routine, your daily routine? How often do you do that?
Every day I reset and I said to myself, what are the 2 or 3 decisions I have to make today that will move the needle? And I'll give you an example. For instance, I don't log in to anything anymore in my business. Now you think, what do you mean you don't log in? Everything's logging in. My team is like, Ari, I asked for some information. They're like, Ari, here's a login to go get it. I'm like, why am I logging in to go hunt for something? I said, I just need the information. That was a big realization. I said, no more do I log in. We just have one dashboard and I ask for what I need and it shows up. That was huge for me because people are so used to, groping around trying to find stuff.
Yeah.
Small example.
No, it's definitely a great example. And understanding these kind of like how I can maximize your time with outsourcing, with basically leveraging. I mean, even growing your knowledge. I would assume that what you know today is more than you knew 20 years ago when you started your company. Is there any kind of nuggets in the sales game that you've picked up over the years that you wish you would have knew when you first started?
Yeah. Well, the biggest aha was getting really, really clear on who my ideal client is that I can help the most. And that profile is someone in the business. It has a business that's low volume, high margin, not high volume, low margin. That requires more trust in the relationship. And that's a quadrant of a business model that most people fumble with because we're using old sales approaches applied to that quadrant, which doesn't work anymore.
Makes sense. Where do you see your business going in the next 5 years?
Well, I'm now at the stage of replicating myself.
Oh.
Where I've got a whole team of coaches who will soon be doing all my work for me. And I have other interests. I'm working on a classic car right now. I'm rebuilding a classic car during the last couple of years. So that'll be ready soon. So I've got other interests I'm working on the side, but I'm in the process of replicating myself so the business runs on its own.
How do you make sure when replicating your business that the customer is going to get the same quality that they would get with working with you?
They won't get the same. Nobody will be. No, it doesn't have to be the same. As long as you're 75% as good as me, that's 50% more than they would expect anyways. So no one will ever be as good as the founder. You cannot make some people as good as you because I've been here for 20 years, right? But you can make people 50 to 75% as good as you, and that's enough to make the client very, very happy.
That's a powerful way. I think I don't have anyone ever say something like that. It's a powerful way of looking at it.
And actually, I do this. I work with people as well on how to replicate themselves. I got a system for this. I've learned how to do it now. It's working, so it's great.
If there's and I know we've already kind of jumped back and forth and like that. Is there any last piece of advice that you would have given to yourself that was in the managing company or the previous company that you were at? Any advice you would give that person?
Let's go back to that story. Remember the story with the conference call when I had that call, I got rejected and it kicked the whole thing off? Well, people always ask me, Ari, what would you do now after 20 years if you're in that situation back then? And the answer to that is this. I never would have had the conference call.
Why is
because
that?
on the first call with the guy, I would have built enough trust with him to figure out what his agenda was, what the truth was, and I would have made the decision not to move forward if I knew what their agenda was in advance. So my last key. Go ahead.
There's not a piece of you that says you have the skill set today that could have changed their mind to not try to manipulate you, but actually win them over. Is there a small piece of you that thinks they could have won them over now?
Well, like I said, if I knew what I knew now, I wouldn't. I would have only entered that phone call if I knew we were fit or not. So it's the fit filter that determines whether you move forward or not.
Makes sense. Well, thank you, Ari, for being here today. If people are listening and they've been listening and they're going, oh my gosh, you know what? I'm looking at sales in the whole different way. And I want to get more information about Ari and his books and his teachings, everything like that. What's the best way of them getting more information?
Best way is just to go right to unlockthegame.com, just like it sounds, unlockthegame.com. Get my book there. It's called Unlock the Sales of the Game. It's right on the website. Or there's a free masterclass. Watch the video. If it connects with you, then don't be afraid to reach out, ask for help. In fact, I have a show once a month on LinkedIn called Stump the Guru, where you can jump in live, ask me a question, challenge me. Just go to LinkedIn, connect with me directly, Ari Galper. I'll say hello to you. We'll have a conversation. We'll just go from there.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate it again, Ari, for being here. Ari's information is in the show notes right there. I mean, take some time. While you guys are listening right now, take some time if you're listening to this right now. And maybe the next event of Stumping Ari is a month, a couple weeks out, whatever it might be. Try to think of something really, really good and see if you could be the one that stumps Ari. Thanks, guys. Please subscribe, please share, and go find Ari. Bye, everyone.